5:34. We'll call the meeting to order. If you would join us for invocation and flag salute, please.
Let's pray. Lord, we come to you. Thank you for this opportunity to come together to improve our community. Please bless our citizens and city leadership and give this community guidance and understanding in all matters discussed. In your name, amen.
Please rise for the flag of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the
United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you both. If you would, roll call, please.
Thomas Newsom.
Here.
Whitney Kerr. Here. Clint Horner.
Here.
Shane Knight. Drew Jackson.
Here. Under consent items 1A, we have consider approval of January 2nd, 2024 meeting minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Call for a vote, please.
Thomas Newsom.
Yes.
Whitney Kerr. Yes. Clint Horner.
Yes.
Drew Jackson.
Yes. Moving to the public hearings section 5A, consider approval of replat request by Vicky Stanowski for 4302 North Washington Avenue. Mr. Reed, what do you got for us?
Alright guys, so just some background. 4302 North Washington Avenue. Current zoning is agricultural. Surrounded by other lower density properties. There's some single family and some agricultural zoning in the area, R1 and A1. The size of the lot roughly is 9.75 acres. Just some background, the Stachowskis approached me to try to, basically it's a family lot and they're splitting it into a mini subdivision or a minor subdivision as our code and ordinances state to give to different family members. There are currently 2 lots, I believe, and they're splitting them into 4 or 5. And basically by our ordinances, we require a replat. So basically replatting the property would allow for the proposed property line changes to occur that they need to give the land to different family members. And then I'll just read some different ordinances. So because it's a minor subdivision, our ordinance states minor subdivisions shall create no more than 4 lots and do not require the creation of new street or the extension of municipal facilities. Minor subdivisions may be approved for residential and non-residential properties. Conveyance plats may be approved under the procedure for minor subdivisions, provided that they establish no more than 4 lots. So basically, because it's a minor subdivision, they can split it without having other streets or city facilities extended. And then looking at the IFC or International Fire Code that our fire marshal goes by, in Appendix D, I believe, it says that facilities, buildings, or portions of buildings must be, and I'm summarizing, but must abut city streets or roads with approved fire access. And because they're doing a lot split and they intend only to build on the first lot that abuts the street, then this passes IFC ordinance. And so again, our recommendation for the replat is that we would absolutely recommend it. So.
Reed, just to be clear, do all of these abut a street, or is it just on Washington?
Just on Washington. So if they desire to build in the future, they would need to take the current easement and make that of IFC approved easement.
Whitney, does that cause any issue? You know, we've talked about the orphan properties before. I understand it may certainly affect their ability to build on those lots, but how does that affect the split itself?
Well, so y'all are essentially, and I'm kind of mishmashing the two together here because I'm not really sure why we're looking at the replat as opposed to the zoning first. But all that being said, that's my concern, is that the board has had issues on other cases with these orphan lots in the back. And we're looking at essentially creating a little subdivision out here. I mean, that's really the standards that you're applying to this, and yet this wouldn't meet normal subdivision rules, which truthfully their purpose doesn't concern me at all. I mean, I understand what
Sure.
they're trying to do, and I have zero issue with that, zero issue with what they're wanting to do. But my concern is the city council, the city attorney have both put a lot of restrictions on other properties that seem to be very much in the same boat as this property. So I'm not sure why the same concerns wouldn't apply to this.
Yeah.
So if we're looking at the written ordinance that was already read, you know, the comment about, I'll read it as well, minor subdivisions shall create no more than 4 lots and do not require the creation of new street or extension. My understanding is that is describing a minor subdivision, not a requirement. Is that?
Yeah, but I mean, we've still got this idea that the lots in the back have to abut a public street, and there is no public street there. So we're putting this condition on here that we could approve it, but all the lots would have to have some sort of access to an IFC standard road. But at the moment, there is no road for those back lots. And so I guess that's really my question for the city, is why are we taking a different position on this than we've taken on some other ones?
That's a good question. So there is an access easement, so you have access to the back, out to every parcel involved. You just wouldn't be able to build on it until you have an IFC approved.
Okay, and that's something that's not in the report, so if there's an easement, then I'm a lot more comfortable with it.
Okay, should be on the.
Maybe I'm
it's
just
on the
missing
plat.
it.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah,
Okay.
proposed easement.
35-foot road and utility easement on I think it's on the north side of the property, is that correct?
Yes.
So streets require a 60-foot easement though, right?
Yes, you're right.
So, and sorry, this plat is a little blurry. How wide is the easement?
I think it's 35. Let me check.
The current easement is 35.
Thanks. So would we need to have a 60-foot easement to satisfy?
Well, I mean, truthfully, for my purpose, I don't really care, but I'm not the one with the issue with the orphan lots. That's very much been Mr. Markham and the city's complaint, and so I don't care. I mean, they know what they've got. They've been told, hey, at some point to sell these lots, to do something with these back 2 lots, you're gonna have to have this. At the same time, city attorney, city council has been very vocal that they don't want orphan lots. And I think that's what we're doing, so.
If it was a 60-foot easement, would you have the same opinion?
No, if there's a 60-foot easement, there's a roadway potential there that meets IFC standards.
Okay. So it seems like that's the recommendation.
Well, we'll hear from the applicants as well, but
Okay.
is there any other questions for staff?
The only other thing I would question, so on the plat, it looks like there is a small structure on the line of that easement, on that north easement line. Is that an actual house, or is that something else?
No, that's like a
It's a pole
barn.
It's a pole barn.
Okay.
And the roadway, existing roadway already goes around that. There's a dirt and gravel path all the way to the area of parcels. And it makes a difference. She potentially will be buying out the entire back section.
Ma'am, I hate to interrupt you. Would you mind coming to the microphone and stating your name? Thank you. Appreciate it. We've got folks listening online too.
Yeah.
So
My name is Brandy Stahowski. I'm daughter-in-law of Vicky, the applicationer.
So the back sections of the two parcels potentially will eventually, well, one of them will eventually be owned by Vicky, my mother-in-law. And then that very last section at the very, very back is potentially in the works of being, I don't know, acquired, I guess would be the right word. It's in discussion amongst the family. It's all family property. Right now, there is no intention to build on that back section of that property at all. The only one is that front section for a single-family home. So right now, the family, as discussed, is planning to keep it as is. But it was necessary for this application to meet city requirements once the trust was dissolved, and we could not divide the property according to city ordinances.
Can we put page 19 of 49 on the screen, please? It should be the plat. So if I'm looking at if you wanted to count maybe the third lot down, it's labeled framed RES. I'm assuming framed residence. Is that what that would?
That is the original boundary survey. That is not the most recent. There should be one more. Sorry, I apologize for interrupting. No. Keep going. Yeah, I think they attached it to every deed. Keep going. There it is. Which is a little small.
So that the same structure is labeled frame residence. But I guess that may work if it's still on Washington, that parcel. Is that right?
Yeah. I don't know how to describe that. Lot 4 and Lot 5 are the two that we're talking about.
So I'm looking at lot 3. It says there's a structure on there labeled framed residence.
That was the original residence to the property.
And so is that lot
is currently occupied.
Is that lot touching Washington?
They have the driveway 35-foot easement all the way to Washington Avenue.
But there's lot 2 between them, correct? Lot 2 is between Washington and lot 3?
Yes.
The IFC code says hereafter, so I think that might be important information that building was built before the 2018 IFC code, so that's just something to consider.
Are you talking about their ability to build?
Yeah, so the building, basically the IFC code is saying that facilities or buildings hereafter constructed shall be accessible to one of these IFC code approved roads or streets. And since that's already been constructed, it's kind of like grandfathered in a way.
My
according
concern
to
is
this
not
code.
necessarily the ability to build on that. It's orphaning a lot that has a residence built
Already
on it.
current.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, they have property all the way to Washington.
So the problem, and this is very technical, and that's why I'm kind of questioning some of this. And it doesn't have anything to do with y'all. So if you kept everything exactly as it is right now, and there would be no issue because it's grandfathered in, okay? You're not substantially changing anything, you're not moving anything, so there's no issue with it being grandfathered in, and there's no issue with the road as is right now because it is grandfathered in. The question becomes, if you do something substantially new to the property, like lot splits and things like that, what portion of that is still grandfathered in? So yes, the house itself is grandfathered in, but the question becomes, if you're doing something new to the surrounding property, do you have to bring the road and everything else up to code, or are you still grandfathered in? I'm gonna be honest, Reed, I don't know that they are grandfathered in when
Okay.
you're essentially changing the nature of the lot to a front-facing Washington lot versus there's a lot in between the two.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure they are gonna be grandfathered in. That's a Tom question.
Yeah, and a fire marshal as
Yeah.
well. Yeah, okay.
Now, are they talking about the shop in lot 3? Or are
No.
they talking about
They're talking about.
the residential structure?
Yeah, so
in-
say you built that residential structure in front of this house,
Mhm.
along the street, they're saying because you built that structure, they're not sure that that access is grandfathered in. And that would be a Tom Markham or our attorney or a fire marshal question is.
His property actually extends to Washington. That 35-foot driveway is his all the way across, so
Oh,
And that goes
he
all the
has
way
direct
to
access.
Washington Street.
that was one of the adjustments that we made.
Okay.
Right, I mean, at that point, it's not an LFC accessible road, so I mean,
Okay,
but that's a question. That's
Okay.
a question that needs a little bit of legal research.
So my understanding is we have taken the position that we're requiring folks to even build the road before splitting, is that right?
I mean, it doesn't really affect the rezoning question, and I don't know that it affects it if we're looking at this as a preliminary plat. But if we're looking at this as like a final plat, anything like that, I'm not sure it's gonna meet city code. And I'm not sure it's gonna meet the tone that the city has taken on consistent with other projects.
okay,
So, again, that's a Tom
Yeah.
City question. As far as our purpose, I mean, I think we could either say, hey, we want the answer before we do this, or we can say, we've raised our concern, city, do with it as you will. But I mean, I don't think it affects the rezoning at all. I just think it's a question of the plat.
yeah. It seems that 60-foot is the thing that's most in question.
Would the applicants like to make any other comments?
I have lots of questions, but I don't know if now's the proper time to ask them.
You're welcome to ask them. I don't know if we're the ones to answer it either, so you're welcome to ask.
They said we only had to have a 35-foot.
Well, I don't know how much to say as far as background information goes.
Yeah.
The whole reason this replatting even started was because we had approached to build on that lot 2 a potential residence, or asked questions about potentially building a single-family residence. At the time, there's no talks of any development beyond that first lot, but because the property was split to the beneficiaries of the trust, that's why we kind of divided it amongst the family, with the intention that it remains in the family. So at this time, there's no one else potentially going to be building any new structures of any kind other than Vicky's current resident on lot 1, Tim's current resident, which is the one in question. So it was recommended that we give him that driveway access in order to develop that second lot right off Washington. So if the property becomes entirely owned by one individual of the back lots in question, meaning lot 4 and 5, does that change the dynamics any?
Potentially, yes. And this is one of those places where it kind of depends. So you have 9.75 acres out there. Depending on how much and how you divide the property. I mean, it's the fact that you're dividing it into the lots that's spurring this issue
Right.
with the rezoning to the minor subdivision. So if you have a chunk of the property that isn't split into lots, because what would otherwise be lot 3, 4, and 5 are all one piece of property, you may not, what I'm telling you here is you may not need to do a lot split for that piece of property. You may not need to divide that up. That portion may not even need to be rezoned depending on how big that section is.
But essentially you'd be asking all the family members to own a single property. Is that what you're saying?
I'm not saying anything.
Okay.
I'm just trying to answer your question the best I can.
Right.
Because I'm not telling you anything specific about your situation or how many people. I don't know what your trust document says. I don't know how many people are involved. I don't know what the situation is.
Right.
But if you have a piece of property that is more than 5 acres and it's all belonging to one person and has one structure on it, you don't need to rezone that. You don't have to replat that. But when you start getting into smaller sections of the property,
Right.
yeah, this minor subdivision comes in because you've got 4 or more lots on this, or you've got less than 4 lots on this piece of property. Then you're getting into, are you meeting code compliance where your road access is what it needs to be, lot sizes, access to the roadway, all that stuff. So that's the part where I'm kind of like, it's not your project. It's not, this is nothing specific as to you. It's just my question kind of back to the city and to the planning is, we have raised flags on this on other issues. So how are we addressing them in your situation so that we don't have the problem? But to your broad question of if everything 3, 4, and 5 are all owned by the same entity, that might not be a concern at all. I don't know.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Any questions for applicants? Any comments? I can give my 2 cents and then you can give the better one if you want. So I guess to address the applicants, I certainly don't have, I understand why you're wanting to make the request. These types of requests in the past have created some issues for the city in the sense that if we create additional lots and in the future one of those lots is sold to a new owner, there's some issues with that lot that the new owner has to address, and that has created some issues that we've had to address in the past. So the city attorney and council has taken a stance on how they want these things addressed. My opinion is that it would need a 60-foot easement at a minimum, but I don't know that I feel comfortable. I want to treat all applicants the same, and we've had some denials, in the past for, some similar questions. I'm probably not going to support this for that reason, just out of consistency.
And that's kind of my concern. I don't have any issue with their project at all. I mean, I know what they're trying to do, and quite frankly, this process shouldn't be that hard for a family who's wanting or needing to split up a fairly good-sized chunk of property to do what they want to do with it. But for reasons that don't have anything to do with their specific project, the city has taken a tone on other projects that we don't want orphan lots that don't have the IFC access, and this plan is not in compliance with what I've seen on other projects. And so that's my concern. I don't have any issue with their project. I don't have any issue with rezoning. My question is, I don't know that that plat meets what the city's asked other people to do.
Is there a motion? I'll move to deny the request.
I'll second.
We have a motion to second. Call for a vote, please.
Thomas Newsom,
Yes.
Whitney Kerr,
Yes.
Clint Horner,
Yes.
Drew Jackson.
Yes. 5B, consider approval of rezone request for 4302 North Washington Avenue. I may also want to ask if the applicant still wants to proceed with the rezone.
How much more money are we talking? We've already shelled out $6,000 for this.
You might want to explain.
And it's not gonna
the
be
ne-
sold, it's
You
not
might
gonna
want to
be
explain the next part of that
rebuilt for
process
anybody
before we
to
move on about it going to city council.
Keep in mind that this is a recommending board, so next week it will go to city council for final approval. So they certainly have the right and ability to make a different decision than we have. We're simply making a recommendation to them. If you want to proceed with the request, they'll hear both requests.
And the city council can't hear it unless we take action. So by us taking action, we have moved it to the city council.
Thanks. Okay.
So same property, same situation, currently agricultural, wanting to rezone to R1, very much in line with future land use as well as surrounding area. Abuts a property to the east, south, and west, or just either east and west that are already single-family residential R1. So the recommendation for the city would be to rezone from A1 to R1 for the specific uses of the family.
Any questions for staff? Would the applicant like to speak? Any discussion? I don't have any issues with the rezone.
I'll make a motion to approve as requested.
I'll second. Have a motion and a second. Call for a vote, please.
Thomas Newsom,
Yes.
Whitney Kerr,
Yes.
Clinton Horner,
Yes.
Drew Jackson.
Yes. Motion passes. Moving to 6, new business. Reed, would you mind giving us an update just regarding the consultants and where we stand there?
Yeah. So I think it was about 2 years ago that the city council approved working with a consulting group called Craft and Toll. They worked on a kind of a code and ordinance overhaul, got a lot of insight from the public and city officials. Unfortunately, they had a change within their staff. The consultant that they had hired left, went to another job, and a lot of the work wasn't satisfactory. Thankfully, Craft and Toll has been really gracious, and they want to continue the contract for the lump sum that we've already paid them with a code writer of our choice to move forward with the code and ordinance overhaul at their expense. So tomorrow I have a meeting with the, in my opinion, the ideal consultant, but would love to kind of get y'all's opinion, and maybe have some insight from that meeting tomorrow, and then maybe we could have a special meeting or some type of meeting where y'all get to meet this consultant and give your opinion. So.
My understanding is that some of the information that was lost was also the suggestions of changes that we had over the years too, as well as ordinance changes. Is that right?
I think so, but I've been kind of just digging and finding some things and uncovering some things, but not necessarily sure.
We appreciate you staying on top of it.
Yeah, thanks.
Anybody have any questions about that?
I think the best way to proceed is just to proceed until we determine it's not the right path, and I think at this point we don't have enough information to know that.
Yeah. So you've got a call this week. Is the commission interested in having a call with a new consultant? Where did you say they're out of? I know you've told me this before.
Yeah, her name is, this consultant specifically is with Placemakers. Her name is Susan Henderson. She's awesome. I've worked with her on the development side of things a little bit, just mutually. But yeah, she's out of New Mexico, and part of this proposed contract would be several physical visits. But yeah.
We could schedule a Zoom call and special meeting or something if that interests you all. Okay. Secondly, we had discussed a new schedule of, you might say, additional meetings to talk about some planning. I had a typo in the email that was for 2023 schedule. It's obviously 2024 schedule. I think you all had a chance to look at that. The first meeting was suggested to be later this week. Question one, is this still something that you guys want to proceed with, move forward with? And if so, I think there's a conflict that already has come up for February 8th. We may want to do, whenever we have a special meeting with the consultant instead of the February 8th. So kind of two questions. One, do you guys want to move forward with that proposed schedule? And to, anybody have any suggested changes?
Yeah, I mean, the schedule worked.
Yeah, it worked for
well.
me. Yeah, I'm not available the next Thursday, but that schedule's as good as any schedule I can.
Which Thursday were you not?
The 15th, I'm not available. If we're going to move the 8th to the 15th, that doesn't work. But
So would the right way to proceed is put so I'll go through the list of dates real quick. So what was originally proposed was February 8th, April 11th, June 13th, August 8th, October 10th, December 12th. Would it make sense to proceed with the April, June, August, October, and December as planned, and just agree to have a special meeting in lieu of the February 8th?
sure.
It would make sense. We cannot, I don't think that we can vote on meetings or when we can schedule meetings at this meeting. It can just be a
Right.
discussion, but I don't have any issue with that.
Well, we can put that on the agenda for
Sure.
the coming. And then, what do we need in order for the special?
As long as we have an agreement to put it on the agenda, I think we're okay. It's
Sure.
just, we can't vote on a formal schedule.
Sure. Yeah, I think the point was just the discussion, make sure everybody wanted to move forward.
Right.
So if everybody's in agreement, we'll put it on the agenda for next time.
I'm in agreement. I mean, we're at kind of a point with this where we're getting caught in the old system, the new system, and quite frankly, people are getting batted around in the middle of what we want, what the ordinances say, and I think that it would do us. I've lost my train of thought. I think that we would do well to sit down and discuss kind of a future planning scheme so that we can better serve the citizens and help them with a clear direction on process and what to do.
With the ordinances, I know we've talked about ordinances, but they would probably be one of several topics rather than the sole focus, I'm thinking, but.
Some of the topics might include like just holistic planning, 30,000 foot. Something I'm very passionate about is subdivision code. And then some maybe streetscapes or return on investments on specific development, specific ordinances, stuff like that. So
I definitely would like to create a forum where we can hear ideas and see what makes sense, not only for commission, but council, and we obviously have a lot of stakeholders in the city that might have some good voices. We spend obviously most of our time with rezoning and plats and everything else, so creating a dedicated time for that. One of the things that we had also discussed is trying to keep these meetings to an hour. Try to be respectful of the additional commitment here, and if we have some time left over in our existing or regular meetings, we can cover some of those topics and allow these others to be somewhat of a run over or dedicated to certain topics, so that may help facilitate.
Works for me.
Any other comments or new business? Have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I'll
Second.
Do you need a call for a vote to adjourn?
Thomas Newsom,
Yes.
Whitney Kerr,
Yes.
Clint Horner,
Yes.
Drew Jackson.
Yes. Thank you all. Appreciate it.